Right, so I know I said that my 2020 end of year review video was going to be my last of the year, but King in Black came out, and this book was so good I had to make a video about it. But yeah, what this is going to be is it's not going to be a review of sorts. It's more going to be the type of content that I want to make going forward. I'm going to weigh up the pros of this book and the cons, and like what and why I'm so excited about this, why I love it so much, but also something that really bugs me about the comic book industry as a whole that I'm really I really don't like, and I just need to have a tangential rant about it. But I'm going to talk about the good stuff in this first, and the good stuff is this book is genuinely one of the best books I've read all year. If not the best book I've read all year. And it's probably one of the best books I've read since Secret Wars in 2015, when I started properly reading comic books as a weekly thing. This is probably my favourite event book, first issue. It just gets straight to the point, and that's what I love about Donny Cates when he does these massive big events, is there's no kind of breathing room. It's just non-stop action all the time, and I love that. You get the story as well, but the story has been just leading up to this, and the whole of Venom's run has been leading up to King in Black, and now it's out, and we've seen kind of what Null is capable of now, and we have a roadmap of the stakes, what Null is capable of. We have this villain that's been introduced that is so powerful, and it's just this big threat, and we're like, what are we going to be able to do? How do we beat this? I genuinely don't see how they're going to beat Null going from this point. Another thing that I really like is characters show up in this that I never expected to show up. Everyone is a player. Everyone in the Marvel Universe is a player. The only character that isn't, and that's on the cover, and is quite a big part of the cover, is Hulk. Hulk is nowhere to be seen in this comic, but he's on the front cover. And I thought throughout the book they keep talking about this big ace up their sleeve that they have, and then Sentry shows up just to die. Yeah, Sentry dies in this issue. Spoiler alert, but I really liked that moment as well, when Sentry died, and then Null is like, I am the Void now, I have absorbed the Void, I now have that power. I loved everything about this issue. The artwork by, what's his face? I should know. It'll come to me, but the artwork is superb in this. I genuinely think that the artist working on this is one of the best in the industry, and this book looks way better than any other book coming out of Marvel at the moment. That's just saying this book is beautiful. The way that he draws Null, the way that he draws Venom, the way that he draws every character, the way that he draws the Celestials, Sentry when Sentry does show up. It's really, really fun, engaging, kind of a horror vibe, but it's more of a 90s B-movie horror vibe, where it's not really a horror. It's not really a horror in the same way. It's like a Stephen King horror, as opposed to a horror where it's all about the monster, and the monster is literally this thing that you don't see. You see Null. You see Null, and he is terrifying because of everything that the book shows you. You're not like told about this character or this monster, and you're not shown. But what you're not shown, it's scary. It's scary because you see Null do all these things, and you see the next big thing that pops up, the next big thing that pops up, and then how the comic ends, and the twist. I saw it coming. I knew what the twist was, where he was like, I'm not here to kill you, Eddie, I'm here to kill your son. I knew that was probably going to be the case, because we had, in the previous Venom arc, fucking Eddie and Dylan going into the future, and seeing Dylan's like future self becoming Codex, and that's obviously going to happen. They're obviously leading towards that in some capacity at the end of this, and that's probably how Null will be beaten at the end of this. But that twist, I saw it coming, but the way that they play it, and the way that this comic ends, I'm genuinely very interested to see how it goes. Which leads me into the stuff that I don't like about this, and there's only one thing that I don't like about this book, and it is the sheer amount of tie-ins. Like, I'm gonna just go right to the end with this, and you're gonna have to bear with me for a second. But I'm gonna go right to the end of the issue, and I'm just gonna read out all of the tie-ins that this book is gonna have. So the checklist for this month is King in Black number 1, Atlantis Attacks number 5, The Union number 1, Venom number 31, King in Black Immortal Hulk issue 1, King in Black Namor issue 1, Black Cat issue 1, Symbiote Spider-Man King in Black number 2, King in Black number 2, Spider-Woman number 2, King in Black Iron Man Doctor Doom issue 1, and King in Black Namor number 2. And that's just for this month alone. Why the fuck does Namor need a tie-in? Why does Immortal Hulk need a new mini to tie in? Why does Iron Man and Doctor Doom need a mini to tie in? Why does the last issue of a mini need to tie in when the rest of the mini had nothing to do with this storyline? Why do you need to make a mini? The first one was good, then you made a second one that was also quite good. Why do you need a third one that's a tie-in to this event, but it takes place all the way back in the 1980s? Why does that need to be an event? Why does that need to tie in? And this is what annoys me about the comic book industry as a whole. It's the sheer abundant amount of tie-ins to books that doesn't need it. This doesn't need to tie in with Immortal Hulk. This doesn't need to tie in with Captain America. You don't. And the thing is, you're making minis to spin out of this, which means if you're reading Immortal Hulk, you're probably going to be reading Immortal Hulk. You're probably going to be reading Immortal Hulk, King in Black. If you're reading Captain America, you're probably going to read Captain America, King in Black. If you're reading, say, Fantastic Four, because I know that Fantastic Four is going to have a tie-in with this, and it's going to tie into the main Fantastic Four book. And it's just going to stop, it's just going to halt whatever Dan Slott is doing, so he has to make an arc to tie in with this. And that genuinely does rub me the wrong way. When books are going at a certain trajectory and then they just have to go off to tie in and then you've got about 5 issues that don't really have anything to do with it, anything, and they aren't really relevant to the actual event that they're tying into. Like what Fantastic Four are going to be doing during King in Black. What are they going to be doing? They're probably going to be fighting a symbiote. They're probably going to be fighting one of the dragons that Nolan sent. That's probably going to be the whole 4-issue tie-in. It genuinely does annoy me, the amount of that Marvel genuinely has to make tie-ins to so many books. Like, every single book that's coming out at Marvel is going to be having a tie-in to King in Black. Pretty much, apart from Spider-Man, which it would make sense since it's a Venom event. I mean, the main Venom book is obviously going to have a tie-in. That's obvious. The only books that should have a tie-in to King in Black is Venom and maybe Avengers. And Avengers isn't. Avengers are going to be taking on the Phoenix Force during this. Why is that where you're going? They do make reference to Thor being missing, which of course they will, because Donny Cates is writing Thor at the moment. So obviously they're going to make reference to Thor being missing. And obviously Thor's not going to get a tie-in to this, because of what is actually going on in Thor at the moment. But yeah, that is probably the most annoying thing about this, is the sheer amount of tie-ins. And the thing is, this month, there's a lot of tie-ins, but this is probably the lightest month in terms of tie-ins. It's probably the end of the month that's going to get the most tie-ins, which is really annoying. It's one of my biggest pet peeves with the comic book industry, and I think it's like any comic book reader's pet peeve, because they'll see this big checklist and they'll be like, I'm not reading that book, I'm not reading that book, I'm not reading that book. But is that book going to be necessary to get the full story of this event? Or do I just need to read the 5 issues? Do I just need to read the Venom book to get this? And I would say, I would wholeheartedly recommend King in Black to anyone reading comic books that likes Venom or that likes good comics. But with the sheer amount of tie-ins that are going in to it, and not knowing how many of those tie-ins are going to be relevant to the actual story, because the same with Absolute Carnage, there was some tie-ins that were like, what has this got to do with the main story? That's obviously not relevant. But there's some tie-ins, like the Miles Morales one. Who's going to think that Spider-Man Miles Morales is going to tie in with a Venom book? But the Miles Morales tie-in was probably the most relevant to the story. The actual Venom tie-in to Absolute Carnage, even though Absolute Carnage was a Venom book, a Venom-centric book, that tie-in didn't really mean anything to the main Absolute Carnage plot, because Venom wasn't a big star of that book. It was more Dylan. It was more of a Dylan-centric story at that point, which wasn't a problem because it let us know more about Dylan. But yeah, it wasn't like a Venom-centric storyline. And is that going to be the same with this? Is the King in Black Venom tie-ins just going to be about what Dylan's doing in the fucking chamber? Oh yeah, that's another thing that I like. The continuity thing from a thing that was introduced in 2002 in the Spider-Man run, in J. Michael Straczynski's Spider-Man run, is now getting used for Dylan. Dylan is using that safety chamber that Ezekiel made for Spider-Man to stay in when Morlun was around, and the same chamber that Silk was in for so long. But to close off this, the tie-in thing is a problem. If you have the money to buy every tie-in, just buy every tie-in. But the thing is, not everyone, or very little of the comic book reader base, are going to have the money to buy every single tie-in. So yeah, I genuinely think that King in Black is one of the most exciting, most interesting, and probably the best comic book this year. But I can't recommend it because of the sheer amount of tie-ins that are going to be in it. But then again, every event book sells, and this has Donny Cates' name on it, so it's gonna sell anyway. And there's way worse books that could sell. But I'm gonna end the video here. I'll see you guys in the next one. Check out my Twitch streams. Every Twitch stream this month is raising money for Red Nose Day. So yeah, head on over to my Twitch and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.